The sharpest weapon in the world is not one that is made from steel, nor is it one that has to be forged in iron, nor is it one that is made or uses ammunition or uses launch codes. The sharpest and most powerful weapon is one that each and every one of us carries with us, young and old, rich and poor. And it is one of the most powerful weapons. This weapon is the tongue. And with this powerful weapon, we are able to either build families and relationships or to destroy them. With this weapon, we are able to start wars and devastation or to bring peace. With this weapon, we are either able to shatter hearts or to mend hearts. And it is for this reason that we find that one of the focuses of our Islamic teachings is on considering the tongue not just as a tool, a powerful tool, but as a sacred trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a great gift from God. The Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, ar-Rahman, allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. That God gave the human being the capacity to express him or herself, to speak. And this great blessing of Allah comes with great responsibility. This is why our teachings, they emphasize on the importance of being very careful with how we use our tongue, what we say and what we don't say, and how we say what we say. We find that the traditions, they tell us to be very careful. Our fifth Imam, Al-Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he says in the hadith, إِنَّ هَذَا اللِّسَانِ مِفْتَاحُ كُلِّ خَيْرٍ وَشَرٍ. This tongue is the key to all goodness and all evil. It can be used for good, but it can even be used for evil and wrong. And thus he says in the hadith, so it is incumbent upon the believer to protect his or her tongue the same way that one protects their wealth and their money. We all take extra care to protect our money and our wealth, no? We check our balances every single day. We want to make sure that our balance, our money in our bank account is safe. When we travel, we make sure that our belongings, our personal belongings, our valuables, they're safe. We don't just leave them anywhere. You are traveling. If you're staying at a hotel, you put your valuables in a safe. Some people, they even go beyond that. They don't even trust the safe at the hotel. They carry their belongings with them at all times, close to their heart, close to their chest. We protect our wealth because our wealth is important. Al-Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says it is incumbent upon the believer to protect his or her tongue in the same way that he or she protects his or her wealth. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, one day, he narrates, the great companion of Rasulullah. He narrates, he says, one day I entered into the masjid and I found no one in the masjid except two people, except Rasulullah and next to him Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imagine Abu Dharr enters into the masjid and there is Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen. How lucky Abu Dharr is to have this entire attention, only to have the attention of the two greatest men. So he says, I approached Rasulullah and I greeted him and I sat next to him. And I told him, Ya Rasulullah, this is a golden opportunity for me. to be here in the company of you and Amir al-Mu'mineen. Give me advice. Give me advice. And this advice is recorded in the books of Hadith. And among the advice that Rasulullah gives to Abu Dhar, he tells him, "O Abu Dhar, be very careful with your speech, with your tongue. For it is through your speech that you will either be punished by Allah or you will be saved." Abu Dhar, he was kind of astonished to hear this. This is a big deal. This is a big statement from Rasulullah, that through one's tongue and one's speech, one can either, God forbid, be punished by Allah, or one can be rewarded and saved by Allah. So he asked him, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, is it true? Is it real that because of this tongue, I can be punished in the hellfire?" And Rasulullah, he responded to him. He told him, وَهَلْ يُكَبُّ النَّاسِ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ إِلَّا حَصَائِدَ أَلْسِنَتَهُم. He told him, is there anything that drags people into the hellfire more than the harvest of their tongues? It's a huge responsibility. Here Rasulullah is saying that perhaps the vast majority who end up being punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter, the reason by it or for it is what? Is because they could not control their tongues. It's because they allowed themselves to speak freely without accountability. They did not think before they spoke. They used this powerful blessing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to destroy, in order to cause corruption, in order to engage in wrongdoing. So our teachings, they emphasize the importance of speech and being careful of our speech. Think about this, dear friends. From the moment that we are born, we enter into this life, until the last moment of our life, every word that we utter is recorded. Every single statement, every word, and this is the Quran. مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. Every word, everything we say is recorded. And so we have to be very careful. Think about if someone at the end of today were to come to your home and they will play for you everything you said from the moment you woke up today until the end of the day. They replay it for you, word by word. How would I react to hearing what I said throughout the day? Would it be something that I would be proud of? Or would it be something that, God forbid, I would regret? And so our teachings, they emphasize the importance of being very careful. They tell us that we should either speak carefully, speak in a positive manner, or if we can't do this, then the other option is to do what? Is to stay silent. This is why many of our traditions, they tell us that the root of all goodness is silence. This is repeated in our ahadith, in our teachings. The Quran commands us that when we speak, we should speak in a positive manner. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. When you speak, speak in an upright way, in a positive way. In another verse, the Quran says, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. Speak to people in a kind way, in a beautiful way. When you speak to one another, ensure that your words are positive, that they are uplifting, that they are empowering. And thus we find that our traditions, they give us an ethics of speech. They tell us that when we speak, our words should be, number one, they should be honest. We should be truthful. There is no room for deceit, for lying. The hadith, they tell us, the hadith of the Imam, he says, تَعَلَّمُوا الصِّدْقَ قَبْلَ الْحَدِيثِ. Learn to be honest and truthful before you learn to speak. And if we examine the life and the legacy of the prophets and the messengers, we find that that was their core characteristic. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Before receiving revelation, he was known as As-Sadiq al-Amin. the truthful and the trustworthy. Because in no moment, there was never a moment where the Prophet told a lie. He was always honest. The Quran tells us to believe, وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, be with those who are truthful. Being honest is important. It's important for me to be honest because honesty stands with the truth. It's important for me never to allow deceit or lying to come out from my mouth. In every aspect of our life. As a student, I have to be honest. I have to make sure that when I study and when I engage in the pursuit of knowledge, that I do so with honesty. There is no room for cheating and dishonesty. Sometimes we think that if we are dishonest, that there will be an advantage for us. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he speaks to this problem. He says, avoid lying and avoid deceit, even if there is an immediate benefit to you, because in the end, that deceit will betray you. And always speak the truth, even if it will cause you some problems and concerns, because the truth will always save you. We might think that, as a student on this exam, for instance, if I cheat on this exam, no one's going to know. And it will bring me benefit. I'll pass the class. I'll get a good grade. But in the long run, that act of deceit will come back to haunt me. And the same goes with everything, whether we are young or whether we are old, when it comes to our business dealings, that our business dealings are honest. We want to make sure that we don't cut corners. We want to make sure that we are being honest with others. Sometimes in the world of business, if you consider honesty to be your primary concern, maybe some of your colleagues, maybe even your business partners, they will look upon this in a negative way. They will frown upon this. They'll tell you because, you can cut corners and you will make a very lucrative, sort of deal. You'll make a lot of money if you don't tell the whole truth. If you tell them, no, I'm honest, they'll tell you, then we're probably not going to be good partners. You're not going to be a good business person, because we think about immediate gains. But we do not think that overall, that act of deceit, that act of dishonesty will come back and it will haunt me. It will destroy me. I think that I am gaining, but in fact, I am losing. So here, we know that one of the important aspects of speech is that it is honest. And we have to be able to be honest. We have to teach honesty to our children and to our families. And the best way to do that is to embody honesty. As a parent, I can't expect my children to be honest if I myself am dishonest. I can't tell my children to be honest, to tell the truth, if they see me or they hear me tell a lie. It's not going to work. I have to be able to embody honesty. And when we embody honesty, then this is one of the best ways to instill that value in our family and in our friends. We find as the ethics of speech, not just honesty, but it's also important that when we speak, we do so in a positive and uplifting way. When we speak, we do so with beauty, with compassion, with kindness. And there are many examples. The Quran describes the Holy Prophet. He says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is through God's mercy and compassion that you, Ya Rasulullah, were lenient, you were merciful with people around you. Had you been stern and hard-hearted and harsh, what would the consequence have been? People would have fled, they would have run away. Because no one enjoys someone who is harsh and stern. People are more willing to accept you, to listen to what you have to say, to follow you when you are compassionate in your dealings. When you speak to people in a beautiful way. Even if you are educating someone, even if you are teaching someone, The example from the life of Al-Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salam is a beautiful example. This is a story that you have probably all heard before. That during his life, a man comes from Syria. And during that time, that was a stronghold of Bani Umayyah. And Bani Umayyah would engage in all sorts of propaganda, especially against Banu Hashim, the family of the Prophet, and especially against Amir al-Mu'mineen and his descendants. They would make up all sorts of lies in order to destroy their reputations. They made up all sorts of lies. For decades, Banu Umayyah had instituting the public cursing of Ali ibn Abi Talib and his descendants from the pulpit, from the minbar, for decades. So you can imagine that was an environment that was filled with anti-Ahlul Bayt propaganda. People would grow up with these imagining that the Ahlul Bayt were evil people, that they were wrongdoers. So a man from that area, he comes to Medina. And during this time, Al-Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salam, he is the chief of Banu Hashim. He is the chief of the family of Rasulullah. This is after Amir al-Mu'mineen, after the lifetime of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he comes and he relates this tradition. He comes and he asks specifically for Al-Hasan ibn Ali. He says, I want to meet him. So they point to Imam Hassan. He goes and he sees the Imam and he asks him, he says, are you Al-Hasan ibn Ali? The Imam says, yes. He says, as soon as I confirmed that it was him, I began to spew all kinds of hatred. I cursed him, I cursed his father, I cursed his family. I went on and on. He says, after I said everything that I wanted to say, he said, the Imam, he looked at me and he responded with a smile. He had a gentle smile on his face. And he told me the following. He said, it seems that you are a stranger. You are not from this area. Look at how polite the Imam is. He doesn't want to tell him, I know where you are, what your background is, what's going on. He told him, it seems that you are a stranger. You're not from this area. If the man was from this area, he would have known the value of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. He would have probably been raised with the Ahlul Bayt and saw them before his eyes. It seems that you are a stranger, not of this land. Is this correct? The man said, yes. He told him, if this is the case, then if you need a place to stay, I can offer you a place to stay. If you are hungry, I can feed you. If you are thirsty, I can quench your thirst. If you are low on funds, I can assist you. I can help you with money. I can give you directions. The man says, when I heard this response from Imam Hassan, I completely regretted everything I said. I wished that the earth would open and just swallow me alive. I was so embarrassed and so ashamed. Here I am cursing this man, and he responds with nothing but kindness and beauty. So he says, I began to apologize to him. I told him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I apologize. I'm so ashamed. I've been told all of these things, but now I recognize that the truth and goodness is with you, that you are honorable. So I want you to forgive me, Ya ibn Rasulullah. This is the legacy of the Ahlul Bayt. They teach us that when we speak with others, even those who humiliate us, even those who oppose us, even in cases where someone harms you, they harass you, that when you speak to them, when you respond to them, you do so with beauty and with goodness. And this is the instruction of the Quran. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. The Quran says, repel evil with that which is better. Don't lower yourself to the standards of others. Instead, uphold goodness and kindness. And so, when it comes to the ethics of speech, it's important that we speak in a beautiful way, that we speak in a comforting way. The Quran gives us, even in the example of someone as treacherous as Pharaoh. I mentioned Pharaoh, he was someone who was arrogant, someone who engaged in all sorts of immoral behavior. He was a tyrant, he was a dictator, he was a wrongdoer. But yet when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Prophet Musa and Prophet Harun alayhim as-salam to go and to speak with him, to confront him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them specific instructions. He says, وَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. When you speak with him, this tyrant, this evil person, when you speak with him, speak to him in a soft and lenient manner. Why? Perhaps this approach of yours, when you speak with kindness and compassion, it will impact the person. And this is why it's important not only what we say, but it is also important how we say what we say. Sometimes what we say is true, it is right, but the time and the context may not be appropriate. Someone, for instance, imagine someone in the community, in your family, does something wrong, and you want to correct them, you want to give them advice. Sometimes this is a good endeavor. It's good to give people advice, to correct them if they are wrong. But the way that we do so is important. Imagine if you are trying to correct this person and you call them out publicly in front of everyone else and you humiliate them. And imagine, on the other hand, you take them to the side and privately, with compassion, you admonish them. There's a difference. It is very likely that in the first scenario, the person will feel offended. Even if what you have to say is true and right, they may turn against it because you humiliated them in front of everyone publicly. Whereas in the second case, it is more likely that they will take your advice to heart because they understand that this comes from a place of concern and compassion and kindness and goodness. Our Imams, they teach us that it's very important for us to weigh our speech. Al-Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salam, he says in the famous statement from Nahjul Balagha, he says, لِسَانُ الْعَاقِلْ وَرَاءَ قَلْبِهِ وَقَلْبُ الْأَحْمَقِ وَرَاءَ لِسَانِهِ. He says that the tongue of the wise person is behind his heart and the heart of the fool is behind his tongue. What does this mean? It means that the wise person is the one who thinks before he or she speaks. And the fool is the one who speaks before he or she thinks. And this is important in every aspect, in every conversation that we have. Whether you are having a conversation with your spouse or with your child or with your friend or with your colleague or with a stranger, with a friend or with an enemy, that when before we speak, we think about what it is that we are going to say. And sometimes this is easier said than done, because sometimes you get into a situation where there's a heated discussion, or someone says something and instinctively our reaction is to immediately respond. It's very important for us to pause before responding, to think about this thing that I'm going to say now. What is the value of these words, of these statements? Are these statements that are going to be positive? Are they going to have a good impact or a bad impact? It's important for me to weigh my speech. And thus, we find that our teachings, they emphasize the importance of speaking. And the way that we speak is very important. It's important for us to understand that in some cases, silence is important, much more important than speech. It's important for me sometimes to say silent if what I am saying is going to cause more harm, more damage than good. If what I am saying is going to cause commotion and confusion, then it is better for me to stay silent. If in this gathering of mine, if I speak, I'm going to humiliate someone, or I'm going to speak poorly about someone, I'm going to badmouth someone or gossip, engage in ghiba or gossip, then it is better for me to stay silent. How many of our gatherings when we come together include bad-mouthing people? We speak about this person and that person. We gossip. We want to express to one another the details of people's lives. Did you hear what she did, what he did, what happened here, what happened there? When we engage in gossip, we are engaging in destructive behavior, not towards the other person, towards ourselves. The Quran says, أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. The Quran gives us a very vivid description, asks us a very important question. Are you comfortable with eating the flesh of your dead brother? I want you to imagine this for a moment. I want you to imagine a friend of yours or someone who is close to you, a brother or a sister, and they are deceased. And you go down and you begin to eat their flesh physically. It's gross, it's disgusting, no? The Quran says, فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. It's disgusting for you to even imagine something like that. But the Quran says that when we engage in gossip, when we speak badly about people, even if it's true about them, even if it's true, then essentially what we are doing, it's like we are eating the flesh of our brothers and sisters. So we have to maintain silence. If I know that in this gathering, when I sit down in this gathering, there is going to be gossip, I have to avoid that gathering. And if I go to that gathering and there is destructive talk and speech, then it becomes necessary, it becomes wajib upon me to say something to stop it. Not to keep quiet and say, no, it's their problem. They're speaking between themselves. I'm not speaking badly about anyone. The hadith says, the one who listens to the ghibah but does not stop it, it's as though they have also participated in the ghibah. Here it becomes wajib for me to respectfully say, I'm sorry, but I cannot participate in this conversation. It is haram for us to engage in gossip, to speak poorly about people. And I cannot participate. And some of the traditions say that if someone makes this note and that behavior continues, then it becomes wajib to get up and to leave that majlis, to leave that gathering. Because silence is important. Speech is important. If I have something good to say and positive to say, and I am saying it in a positive way, then this is good. But if, God forbid, I don't have something positive to say, it's better for me to stay silent. But there are sometimes some moments where silence is not a form of wisdom. In addition to this example that I gave you, the example of standing up for the truth, if there is falsehood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ. O you who believe, be among those who stand up for justice, and in doing so you are a witness for God. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need witnesses? Does Allah need a witness? Allah, He is all knowledgeable. He witnesses the apparent and the hidden. But here, the Quran instructs us. It says, when you stand up for the truth, when you speak out against injustice, and you speak for the truth, then you are being a witness for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوِ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ. Even if it's against yourself. You see, the significance of standing up for truth and being alongside the truth is even if it's against oneself. Because sometimes it's easy for me to speak out against the injustice and the wrongdoing of others. It's easy for me. I point it out. I say, this person did something wrong. That person did something wrong. They are unjust. They are oppressive. But am I ready to do the same for myself? To engage in self-reflection and to say, you know what? What I stand for, what I said, what I did was wrong. And I need to correct this behavior. But this is the instruction of the Quran, that we stand and we speak up for the truth. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he went out among the people and he called out. And in his call, here he shows us one of his important objectives during his time. He says, ألا ترون أن الحق لا يعمل به وأن الباطل لا يتناهى عنه. Do you not see, O people, that the truth is not being adhered to, and that falsehood and wrongdoing is not being prohibited? Imam Hussein was living during a time where there was confusion among people between truth and falsehood, where that which was false and that which was wrong was considered to be something good, and that which was good and right was considered to be something wrong. So Imam Hussein here, he uses his voice, he calls out, he says, do you not see that the truth is not being adhered to and that falsehood is not being prohibited? Again, reminding us of this importance of speaking up for truth and against wrongdoing. If I see something wrong in my community, in my family, among my friends, my circle of my friends, in my society, in my city, in my country, in the world, then sometimes it requires that I speak up. It becomes necessary. Because if I remain silent in the face of wrongdoing, and that silence allows that wrongdoing to continue, then I am complicit in that wrongdoing. If I have the ability to say something, to stop it. And so here we find that our teachings, they emphasize the importance of speech. And speech, brothers and sisters, is not what we physically utter only. It's also how we communicate online. Most of our communication nowadays, possibly, most of our communication is not by uttering physical words. Most of us communicate via text and email and on social media. That's our main mode of communication nowadays, no? And in the same way that we have to guard our speech, we also have to guard the way that we communicate online and how we speak to people. And in fact, it is even more important because sometimes, sort of psychologically speaking, and here with social norms, sometimes when you are with a person, physical presence with a person face to face, just the mere fact that you are together in a physical space may prohibit you from saying certain things or saying things in specific ways. You might feel embarrassed. You might not attack the person because you're embarrassed or shy or maybe afraid. But when it comes to social media, that barrier is gone. The barrier of physical presence is gone. So people tend to be much more comfortable in saying whatever they want to say on social media. And this is why we find such a toxic kind of environment on some platforms where people are easily able to attack each other in vicious ways. That person who attacks others, who is disrespectful of others, if they were face to face with that person, they probably would not do so. But because they are behind the screen and they can be anonymous, they feel that they are empowered to say whatever they want without consequences. We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful in what we say, in how we interact in person and online. One of the big lessons that we learn from Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam is that before he lifted his sword, he lifted his voice. Imam Hussein was not just a martyr, a shaheed, a warrior. Yes, he was a great warrior on the battlefield. Read about his history. From his youth, he participated in many battles. And he was a fierce warrior when it came to fighting on the battlefield. But Imam Hussein alayhi salam was also an educator. He was also a guide. He was also eloquent in his speech, and he raised his voice. He used his speech in order to inspire and to lead and to guide others and to admonish them. We have many sermons that have been recorded from the time that Imam Hussein was in the city of Medina, before he departed the city of Medina, to the time that he went to Mecca, and while he was in Mecca, And then from when he departed Mecca and he was on his way to Karbala, on his way to Kufa first and then towards Karbala, and when he was in Karbala, all the way until the final day, the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein, time and time again, he stood up before people and he used his voice for good. He gave measured speeches, calling people towards truth, calling them towards goodness, admonishing them, using beautiful words, beautiful admonishments. When he left Medina, he called out his mission statement, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشِرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا وَلَا ظَالِمًا. I have not risen in order to engage in corruption or wrongdoing or to rebel. وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي. I rise up, I stand up, seeking reform, positive reform of the nation of my grandfather. أُرِيدُ أَنْ آمُرَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَأَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. I seek to admonish people, to guide them towards that which is correct, that which is good, to encourage them to do that which is good, and to prohibit them and discourage them from that which is evil and wrong. I mentioned his famous statement when he called out to the people, أَلَا تَرَوْنَ أَنَّ الْحَقَّ لَا يُعْمَلُ بِهِ. Do you not see? People, look around. These are the words of Imam Hussein. Look around and see that the truth is not being upheld. That we live in a society where falsehood is spreading. Here, Imam Hussein is using his words to admonish people. Even on the day of Ashura, when he stands before that army and he calls out, he says, Ya al Abi Sufyan, in lam yakun lakum deen fakunu ahraran fi dunyakum. He calls out to his opponents, he says, if you have no principles, no spiritual or religious principles, you don't believe in God, you don't believe in the revelation, you don't believe in the messenger, you don't believe that I am your imam, even if you don't believe all of these things, at least be free in your life, in your worldly life. Don't be the slaves of so-and-so and so-and-so. This was their problem. Their problem was that they had completely sold themselves for evil and for wrongdoing. Imam Hussein here, he admonishes them. He uses his speech to teach people. And it was because of these powerful words that we have some examples of people who defected. In the beginning, they had opposed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but they heard his words over and over and it penetrated into their hearts. This is why we have the example of someone like Al-Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. Al-Hur was the commander of the army. He was the one that was responsible, who prohibited Imam Hussein from entering into Kufa and turning towards Karbala. He was the commander of that army. Yet Al-Hur, he heard, he listened to Imam Hussein. And the beautiful words of Imam Hussein, they entered his heart. And thus he stood up and he said, I am making a decision between heaven and hellfire, and by Allah, I will choose nothing over heaven. Other people, unfortunately, they lost their way. They became blind to the truth because they were not receptive, because they had turned away from the truth, because they had sold themselves, their souls, for a petty price in this life. And so those, unfortunately, even the words of Imam Hussein did not enter their hearts, but there were those whose hearts were open to the truth. And because of the beautiful statements and admonishments of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them to the truth. We find in the example of a Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam, who stands up with complete eloquence and beautiful words. She uses her words in that most difficult circumstance when she stands in the courtyard of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Can you imagine? After this tragedy, the loss of all of the adult males, except Al-Imam Zainul Abidin. The woman and the children, they have been taken captive, dragged from Karbala to Kufa, then from Kufa to Damascus. They have witnessed the greatest horrors of their life in the massacres of their beloved family members. And they are being humiliated. Yet As-Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam, she stands in the middle of that court. She is surrounded by soldiers. She is surrounded by the enemies. She is facing someone as treacherous as Yazid. Yet she stands up and she uses her voice. She uses the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she uses the voice that Allah has given her with words so beautiful and so powerful. And she doesn't have to scream. Lady Zainab doesn't stand up and scream. But the words that she uses, they pierce the hearts of people. They shake the foundations of Bani Umayyah. They shake the throne of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. She tells him, فَكِدْ كَيْدَكْ وَاسْعَ سَعْيَكْ فَوَاللَّهِ لَا تَمْحُوا ذِكْرَنَا. Do everything. Look at these beautiful words of Lady Zainab alayhi salam. Do everything, O Yazid. Do everything that you want. Use all of your resources and all of your power and plot your plots and scheme your schemes. But by Allah, you will never erase our remembrance. Such beautiful words of Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. The traditions, they say that when people, they saw her stand up and she exposed the evil of Banu Umayyah, and she guided people to the truth of whom this family was and what they represented, that the entire gathering, it broke down in tears through these simple yet powerful words of Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. And here is a lesson for us, brothers and sisters. The lesson here is that as men and as women, our voices are powerful. Our words are powerful. We have to be very careful in how we use our words, what we say and what we don't say, and how we speak, so that we use our words in order to promote that which is good and that which is beneficial, and to avoid shattering people's hearts and deceiving them and turning towards falsehood. And this is the lesson we learned from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Imam Hussein, he was a very eloquent man. And perhaps he learned this eloquence from his father, Amirul Mu'mineen. Imam Ali alayhi salam was very eloquent. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was very eloquent. They knew how to use their words. They knew what to say and the context of what to say. And they had many beautiful statements and sermons. But there were certain instances that this Imam, whose words shook the kingdom of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, that those words had to be left silence. There were moments where even Abu Abdullah al-Hussein had no words. What is he going to say? When Imam Hussein decided to leave the city of Medina, the beautiful city of his grandfather Rasulullah, that city that he was born in, that city in which he was raised, Imam Hussein, in the city of Medina, it was in the alleyways of the city of Medina that he would run and he would play. It was in those alleyways that Rasulullah would come and he would pick him up and he would put him on his shoulders. It was in that beautiful city that he grew up with his siblings and his family members. It was in that city that all of his beautiful and even his difficult memories, they were in that city. But there came that moment when Abu Abdullah had to depart the city of Medina. And so he goes to bid farewell to the grave of his grandfather, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He goes to bid farewell to the grave of his beloved mother, Fatima Zahra. He goes and he bids his final farewells to his family members. And then he prepares the rest of his family members, those who are with him, who will be embarking on this journey. And he prepares that caravan. And his children, his sons and his daughters and his brothers and his sisters and his cousins and other family members, they get ready, they pack their things, and they load the caravan, and everyone is ready to depart the city of Medina. All of the family members are ready to depart, but there is one person among the family of Imam Hussein who will be left behind. He has his little daughter, Fatima al-Alila. She's a young girl. Her name was Fatima. And the traditions, they tell us that she was too weak, she was too ill to travel with her father and with her family. Imagine Imam Hussein and the rest of the family, they are all ready. They are standing outside of the home. The caravan is ready to depart. And Imam Hussein, he hears the faint voice of his daughter Fatima. She tells him, "My dear father, are you traveling, my father?" What is Imam Hussein supposed to tell his daughter? You know, for those of you who have young daughters, you know the attachment of a daughter to her father especially. You know how she gets attached to her father. When he wants to travel, when he wants to leave, she wants to be the final person to hug him and kiss him. She wants to be the first person to embrace him when he returns. She asks him, "Where are you going? How long will you be gone?" This Fatima, she turns to her father, Aba Abdullah. She asks him, "Oh, my father, are you traveling? Are you going away?" What is Imam Hussein supposed to tell her? He looks at her. The tears begin to flow from his eyes. What does he answer her? She tells him, "Oh, my father, why is it that all of you are going, but I am staying behind? Why am I not accompanying you on this journey? Oh, my father, take me with you." What is Imam Hussein supposed to tell her? He tells her, "My beloved daughter, you are ill, you are too sick. This is a difficult journey. We are not able to take you with us." Allahu Akbar. She says, "But all of my family members are going. Dear father, take me with you." He tells her, "I cannot take you, my beloved Fatima. I am not able to take you with me." She tells him, "My dear father, if I am not able to come, then at least leave with me my baby brother Abdullah. I love my baby brother. I enjoy spending time with him. I enjoy playing with him. He gives me joy and happiness. At least leave him behind with me so that he can comfort me." Imam Hussein, what is he supposed to say to his daughter? He kneels down, he embraces her, and he is not able to say a single word. He kisses her and embraces her. Then he stands up and he turns towards the caravan. Allahu Akbar. You can imagine the devastation of this young child. Will she see her father again? Will she see her brothers again? No, this poor child, she will be left in Medina, and these moments will be the final moments. She will no longer see her father Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. She will no longer see her brothers Ali al-Akbar, nor will she even see that child, her baby brother Abdullah al-Radi'. She will not see her uncles. She will not see her sisters. No, she will not see these family members, for all of them will be massacred on the day of Ashura. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. As-salamu alaykum.